fired me up. I said, get on
the formula. This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 264. My name is Brando. Coming up in just a moment, the Hall of Famer Nancy Wilson of Heart. Wow. She's a new record coming out. It is entitled You and Me. It is coming out May 7th. It features, on one track at least, Duff McKagan and Taylor Hawkins of the Foo Fighters, and we'll get into that, of course, with our GNR, our 6 Degrees of GNR Bacon. And then after that, for Appetite for Discovery, where we talk about new music, new bands, new artists, or new projects, we're going to speak to Todd Michael Hall. If you don't know who he is, you're going to learn a lot about him, and we're going to have a fun conversation about Axl's vocals. But first, as I connect via Zoom to just audio to Nancy Wilson. Hi, Nancy. It's an honor and it's a pleasure and a privilege to speak with you.
Oh, look at your cat. I see your cat in your picture there.
I was hoping you would. One of three, but hopefully they won't step on my microphone or anything and disconnect us. It has happened before.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've got 4 dogs here, so I get you.
Okay, right on. So other than just controlling your dogs, of course, I want to talk about your new album, You and Me. You said a couple very interesting things in the press release that you wanted to reconnect with your pre-Heart self, and perhaps it took this long because you were stuck in the Heart vortex. So I was wondering if you can elaborate on that a little bit. I found that fascinating.
Well, yeah, we have really good problems with the band Heart because we were always on the road, and that's, basically what all a band like Heart really can, that's the most lucrative thing a band like Heart can still do in the current climate of the industry. So we've been able, the last Heart tour was really successful, and like a 58 show tour, and it went so wonderfully, and then came the shutdown pretty soon thereafter. And because we'd been out so much for so long, usually on a break, I would be home for a little while. I would do my laundry, I'd cook some food, repack my suitcase with clean clothes, open my mail, and, go meet the tour bus and skedaddle again and go on the road for another month or 2 or 3 or 6 total. And so, it's just a life where when you're home, you don't have the time really to rest your hands and rest. The last thing I would want to do would pick up a guitar on a break. So this is like a real break, because of the shutdown, which I would have had to take a sabbatical and, forsake my paycheck in order to make a solo. So, which I would have done because I'd been itching to do it for a long time, and asked about it. But yeah, so this was like a blessing inside the larger curse because I had this time on my hands, plus a new beautiful music space in a new house. We moved to Northern California, out of LA, and it's just nice and peaceful here. And, I have another space apart from the actual house itself where I could leave all my stuff out, leave the guitars out, leave the amps out. Everything's plugged in and set up. And I could just leave my mess exactly the way I want it and make as much noise as I want to make without disturbing anybody in the main house. So it was like a reconnection to my, college girl self, because I took a year and a half off before I joined Heart. I had an open invitation, a standing invitation to join, but I had the idea that I wanted to get some experience in, put some cool tools in my tool belt from the university before I joined the rock band.
That makes sense.
Like
sure.
Join the army, see the world, So I went to university, and did creative writing and some music theory and a lot of literature stuff, and it was really useful and it was really beneficial. By the time I joined Heart, when I was like 21, I had more tools in my toolkit. So I kind of felt like going back to that same place where I was looking at some of my old notebooks and some of my resource materials and, various inspiring things to kind of leaf through, and it kind of went from there.
Right on. So then when you had this time, and obviously the amount of people that you've worked with and toured with over the years is, I can't count. We would be here for too long. So when you decided to, which one of your famous friends to sit down and help you with this, how did you go about, I want Sammy Hagar, I want Duff McKagan, I want Taylor Hawkins. How did those decisions come about?
Well, all of those decisions are sort of grew from relationships that already exist. Like with Sammy Hagar, for example, we're already friends. He's been really close friends with my husband Jeff, because they both were Marin boys, together. And then I got to know him pretty well. I did a bunch of things with them, and we shared various stages and did shows and stuff together. And when I approached him to sing for my album, he said, whatever it is, it's got to be something unexpected, like not a big rocker. So I said, well, what about the boxer? And he's like, I love the boxer. So, and he was actually a boxer. So now he is the boxer in the song, the boxer. He's the perfect boxer in the song. So with Taylor Hawkins and Duff, I sang for Taylor's solo record recently called Get the Money, great record actually. And I said, when I started my album, I said, what have you got, do you have any jams, dude, laying around? Because I could use a rocker on my album. He said, me and Duff have this thing. And he sent me this cool jam and I made it into a song. So, and then, so I mean, it's stuff like that. It's just friendships.
Okay, that's interesting, because it was a song that Taylor and Duff had worked on, I guess, privately, and then they approached you with it. I guess when you inquired, they they already had worked on something.
They'd already done a jam that was just sort of in the back pocket.
Okay.
And I said, okay, I'll fix this up into a song, so, but they just had something kind of laying around, because they just loved to play together, I guess.
Because it's such a fun track. That one is called Party at the Angel Bathroom, and hearing it, like, you really hear the influences of Guns N' Roses, the Foo Fighters, and Heart in one. I'm like, this would be a cool band, Yeah. I don't know what, I mean, now I know we're focusing on the solo album, but I hope there's more collaborations like that in the future.
It's actually ballroom, just to be clear.
Oh, what did I say?
You said bathroom.
I said bathroom. Oh my God.
That would be a really good title too.
Oh man. I'll
even more.
I'll blame the lack of sleep. I'll blame COVID or something. That Party at the Angel Ballroom.
Maybe it should have been bathroom. I don't know. But
okay,
it's even more, like, hey, rockin', man.
Oh, brilliant.
But no, it's kind of a power group, by default, but I have a lot of rock bands. I guess that's one of them, because I've played with those guys. I played with Nuno Betancourt and Taylor Hawkins and some other guys for this thing called At Home and Personal, and it was for like the Crew Nation benefit that we did. We did a version of Barracuda with Liv Warfield, who was in another band I'm in, Roadcase Royale, So all of us, we find each other in various groups. It's like modular super groups that we can all. It's a very Seattle ethic thing too. Among Seattle players, there's less of a competitive vibe among the Seattle players. There's a lot more of a, support system there and a brotherhood there.
Wow, that's, now that I think about it, and all the artists and bands that come from there, that makes complete sense.
Yeah. I
know I only have you for another minute or so, and I know you've spoken about, and obviously this song dedicated to Eddie Van Halen for Edward. I want to know, how do you even sit down and be like, I want to put something dedicated to my friend Eddie? How do you do that? Where does that start to pay tribute?
Well, someone from the management company, Red Light Management, said you really should do a solo instrumental piece for your new solo album. And I said, okay, I will write something and I will dedicate it to Eddie. And then I went, oh no, what did I just say? I was going to do that? And so I instantly regretted it. And then I had to live up to it. And so, a long time ago, I'd given him his first acoustic guitar, and he called me the next early morning, still dark early morning, and said, wow, listen, I've made up this cool instrumental on this guitar you gave me. And it was so beautiful that, I'll never forget it. So that's what I was trying to channel when I was writing for his tribute song for him, for Edward. I wanted it to be almost classical with some rock and then some classical elements. Like, his writing always had a major, almost classical structure sometimes. So, that's how I finally screwed up my confidence enough to get that done.
Well, it was brilliant. The whole record, I listened to it, is brilliant. Just congratulations, and I hope we get to do this again, Nancy. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thanks so much. Really appreciate it, Brandon. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I can't believe I said I didn't. Obviously, I kept going on with the sentence, not realizing what the hell I just said. I had no idea. Oh man. Thankfully, she just didn't hang up on me. Oh, what an amateur. I mean, because that's happened. I mean, for those of you who listen to the podcast, this is why you listen. Yeah, I'm so honored to speak with Nancy Wilson. It's a privilege, and she's obviously doing a lot of interviews now, promoting. But what other interview is she, first of all, going to be like, talk about cats? I mean, we connected on Zoom, if that wasn't obvious, but there was no video. So my picture is me, where if you watch the Zoom videos, it's me in my apartment with all my Guns N' Roses stuff in the background, and one of my cats is staring right at the webcam while I'm looking at the computer, so it's just really funny, and I decided to make that my profile picture. And you know what, I knew it was a conversation starter. If I'm not doing video, I want them to see who I am and see what I'm about, and they got that. So right off the bat, it was fun, but so that was on purpose. Party in the Angel bathroom was not on purpose. If she didn't laugh, and my buddy, the producer who just connected us, Bill, just said he fell on the floor laughing when I said that. Hopefully you did too. Anyway, we got to get composed, because right now we are moving on to a great segment. Hopefully no bathroom talk here. It is time for Appetite for Discovery.
I just want to bury appetite. That's the goal. Bury appetite.
For discovery.
So, Appetite for Discovery, and I'm really excited to talk to today. I believe no relation to Anthony. Todd Michael Hall. I'm sorry, right away. I didn't want to ask you that off the air. I wanted a genuine reaction.
Well, you have to be of a certain age to even get that reference, I think. So.
Everyone should know Anthony Michael Hall. I mean, at least know The Breakfast Club. I mean, you might not know Weird Science. I'm assuming no relation.
I think I more know him from Weird Science, probably. But yeah, Breakfast Club too, I guess.
Yeah, Weird Science, of course. Sorry. We won't go down that road. Todd Michael Hall. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So if you aren't familiar, Todd Michael Hall is he's the lead singer from the band Riot 5, and Riot goes back to the 80s, and much like many bands that we know, go through lineup changes, but Todd has been the singer for Riot 5 for quite some time, and you may also know him from The Voice. What was it, season 18? 18. My goodness, because this is where kind of my podcast meets my real life. So we do radio tours for people promoting books and albums and things of that nature. So we every year do tour voices, voice tours. I guess that's the way I want to try to say it, of just people on. I don't know if were you ever on any of those that we did with Premier Radio Networks?
I was, yeah. I mean, I got some interviews like that, yeah, where they line you up and
Yeah.
you get this person, you get this person, get this person, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So maybe we worked together in the past. Maybe it was one of my coworkers. So that's great. But we're going to speak for a little longer than that today because you have a new solo album, your debut solo album, even though you're kind of a veteran, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I actually have a little solo album that I put out independently, but it was like a bunch of pop letters. I met my wife as a pen pal. She's from the northeastern part of India, and I put out an album called Letters from India, and I released it kind of more locally, but I mean, but it was all the proceeds went to charity and stuff, and it was like real light pop and stuff, and piano only ballads and things. So it wasn't really rock and roll Todd, I guess you'd say. So this is really more my first solo album, I guess you'd say.
Okay, I like that. The debut of rock and roll Todd. So I'm just excited to talk to you because, you know, you have such a unique history and a love of classic rock. Obviously, it's the right place for you to talk on this show. So if you can kind of, for those who don't know you, and like on The Voice, they always give your background and your story. Can you kind of, because you're from Michigan, right?
I'm from Michigan, you know, and I've been into the scene for, man, it's insanely long time now, because I had an older brother that was in bands, and so in 1984 I actually played out for the first time, and that was I was only 15 years old, and so 1984, 1985, in that area. And so I've just been doing this for a long time, and went through a lot of what I would call the golden days of live music and live rock music, certainly in the 80s. And so I have a lot of experience with that. And from there, in the mid 90s, I mean, the trouble I had is I did well in school. So I went to college thinking, yeah, when I'm done with college, I'll really focus on rock and roll. And the problem is I graduated in 1991 from the University of Michigan. And that's kind of when the rock and roll landscape really changed massively. Anybody that knows their history, that's when grunge came in and kind of really and I think a lot of musicians that were around in the 80s, you just kind of got confused there for a while. Like, am I supposed to wear plaid or am I wearing leather? What am I wearing? It was pretty funny.
I know. So. Even for me, and you know, I'm a tad younger. I'll be 38 later this year, but 91 obviously was a very impressionable year for me. But I love the grunge and the hair metal, so I have this weird style where I will, you know, wear a Poison T-shirt with, and then a flannel over it. So I'm also kind of confused with it. But it's as long as it's good music, that's all that matters. So. What
I think the funny part too is I go back so far that like I have these influences from the 70s, like when Foreigner and Rush and Boston and REO Speedwagon and Styx, and those really aren't hair metal, those are just rock,
Right.
And then as we got in the 80s, you had the power metal that kind of started out in the early 80s and stuff, and the party metal, and then it turned into hair rock maybe when Poison was out, and I don't even know what they consider hair metal anymore. We all had long hair back then.
Right.
Some of us still do.
Yeah, no, that's good to see. You look young. You look like you're a fresh-faced kid because you have all your hair, which I do not, despite being younger. So it doesn't matter. So with all this influence, and we're just doing the audio version of it. I can see your influence just on, because we're looking at each other, just so to keep it personal. On your wall, you have so many different pictures of bands and artists and stuff. So what makes up this debut rock solo album of Todd Michael Hall? What kind of sounds are we going to get?
I mean, really, when I put it together, what I was shooting for is what I call old school rock, and I call it classic rock inspired. And, I was just shooting for the time when I was younger, when basically rock music was all over the radio. There was just a really positive, energetic vibe about all the music. Like, it was a party, you know what I mean? And everybody wanted to go see bands play live. It was cheap to see bands play live because they made money off the albums. They didn't have to make money off the touring as much. And everybody was excited and wanted to get behind stage and whatnot have you. Just that sort of environment, you knew all the, oh my God, Eddie Van Halen and David Lee Roth. And, you knew all the artists by name because, they were just like these guys, and you also didn't know much about them. So you'd study the album covers and you'd read the magazines because you wanted to know more about these people that were kind of almost mythical creatures. Whereas, nowadays everything is so there, you know what they eat for breakfast that morning if they're regular posters on, social media. So
yeah. Unless, and I think that's the allure of doing a GNR podcast, because no one's really heard from Axl Rose in a year. We don't know what he's doing. He's alive. We know that. That's about it. So what was your first concert that you saw? Like, what was your first impressions on you as a kid that really have stuck with you throughout this time?
Yeah, my first concert was actually Ted Nugent.
Okay,
and
makes sense.
I went
Local.
with my mom because I was only like 13 or 14, and my brother's band always played in the basement even before I got in the band. And so my mom just, she's always loved music, but we really just turned her into a hard rock and heavy metal fan. So yeah, my first concert was with my mom at 13 or 14. I went to see Ted Nugent, and it was a great concert. So
That's cool. Was your mom just there to, have you experience rock and roll, or was she, singing? I mean, I don't want to get fresh, but was she singing Sweet Wang Dang Sweet Poontang? Was she singing along to that?
She was I don't know that she knew all the lyrics, but because my brother was playing the albums in the house, she definitely knew the songs, and she just loves great music. I mean, she's got a really wide range. I don't think she listens to a whole lot of rap music, but I mean, she listens to everything. I remember when I was younger, we had the 8-track cassette player, and 1 minute it would be Tom T. Hall, then it would be like Bread, the Best of Bread album, then you'd have the Deep Purple album, and then a Rolling Stones. I mean, it was amazing, the variety that we had. So
what was, like, when you said, you told me we went to college, and sometimes that can be conflicting with, like for me, I went to college, but yeah, did it help with radio? I mean, it depends. I mean, yeah, mine did. I know it doesn't for everybody. I know people who didn't go to college in radio, and I don't know. Everyone has a different path and story, of course. So what was along your path, when you said, okay, this is going to be my career, this is my path, what was the band that say, okay, this is where it started, this was my first band that I took seriously?
I think for me, I'm almost like, my trouble was I was almost the opposite, in the sense that I was always like, okay, well, I know I want to have a degree that I might be able to get a job in. So my degree is actually in business administration.
Cool.
And as far as deciding to make my career as a musician, I kind of almost basically never made that decision. Like, I kind of thought I wanted to, but the trouble is like, I was waiting for some record label to swoop in and turn me into something, because that's what it was like back in the day. And it was tough to make that happen. It didn't help that I was in Saginaw, Michigan, not the biggest town. And we would play a lot in Detroit and stuff like that. It was just hard to get discovered back then. Back then the record labels were the key to everything, it seemed. Whereas nowadays, there's so many ways to promote yourself that can be different. And I would say for me, I'm in this spot now where I invested a fair amount of time in my own career running the family business and our manufacturing company that I've been doing. Actually, last week was 30 years.
Wow.
30 years that I've been working here full time, and actually 37 since I started when I was 14 years old. So like for me, I'm actually at the point now where I get to pursue music now more, because I have more flexibility with my job. And like a lot of musicians, like, I don't make my living off of it, so I can pursue it. I pursue it more as a passion. I call it a passion project. And it's tough. And I think that helps because, when you have to pursue it for money, maybe there's certain decisions you make that I don't necessarily have to make,
That makes sense. And I recently spoke to another Michigan guy, Lee from Pop Evil. And yeah, he had to since he didn't take your path, they just got discovered. But now during this difficult time, and where we weren't touring, he famously said that they had to get regular jobs to support themselves because they don't have that flexibility that you have. So with that flexibility, is that when you made the decision to go on The Voice? What comes along with going on and doing that, making that leap?
Well, I think what happened is, like, when I got in Riot in 2013, we started playing some shows, and also we played more and more. And like, I even went on my first tour bus tour in like October of 2018, where we had 25 shows over 30 days over in Europe. And so what happened is I just got the business to the point where, like, I'm not really doing the day-to-day stuff so much. As the president, I'm a little more on the strategic end, and obviously with phones and emails and stuff, you can easily stay in contact with people. I even can take a laptop with me.
Right.
And I think what happened is that just it showed me that, if you want to pursue your passion a little bit, you can take a little time away from work, especially because you can still stay in touch, a bit. And I think that's where the notion of The Voice came in. And that's one of the funny things that people don't realize is, to be on The Voice, you need a supportive situation, because you have to take, I had two different, and I was out by the knockout round, but I had two different instances where I was there for like 3 weeks, you know, and, you know, most people can't get, you know, 6 weeks off of work, you know, and especially you're not exactly getting paid a lot. They give you a little bit, but it's not like, you know, a whole lot, you know, depending on what you're used to making, I guess.
Is that experience, you know, as we've, over the course of the podcast, we define what success means, but I want to also define, my God, I'm getting too philosophical. What's the meaning of is, you know, but was it worth it to, I guess, have that experience? Because, you know,
I mean,
yeah, to go through all of that, was it worth it? Other than, yeah, it's on your resume, it sounds cool, but was it taxing?
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, you look at it and you say, "Wow, God, can I be away from work this long? Can I do this or that?" But what is, you know, life is ultimately about experiences.
Sure,
it really is. You know, you can have things, but you know, I mean, whatever. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a terribly material person. I'm not that excited about things. And I tend to be more of a saver, and I'm always worried about, you know, whatever, my retirement or whatever. So to me, I mean, it was an incredible experience. And I mean, to me, it was totally worth it. Like, on one hand, you could say, well, did it make you this huge star or whatever? Well, I've got a video with, say, 4.5 million views. Well, that doesn't mean those people are going to come buy my solo album, though. You know what I mean? So I think it remains to be seen how many of those people I could potentially bring over me. But even so, I didn't necessarily do it because of that. You know, I mean, it gives you that bump, but at the same time, I mean, God, man, I got James Taylor tipped his hat to me and said, "Man, your range is a rare gift." Well, I mean, you know, I don't know how many people can say that, you know?
Exactly.
So, I mean, I think, you know, and not in terms of even bragging, just the notion of the experience, to be able to stand next to, and James Taylor and Blake are both really tall guys too, but to stand there with them and talk to them for 10 minutes about, you know, music, ask, you know, James a few questions, and to talk to them as a fellow musician, that's pretty mind-blowing. You know, I mean, that's pretty incredible experience. And like, I don't put people up on a pedestal like, oh my God, I want to lick your boots or anything. But you know what I'm saying? It's really cool. It's like, you know, how often do you get that opportunity? And then just the notion of experiencing that television production at that national level and seeing all the behind the scenes stuff. And I mean, when I was going from you go to, there's like the makeup people you go to, and then you go to wardrobe. And when they handed me clothes to go over and try, and I walked across the hall to go to the fitting rooms, I almost ran into Ted Danson, you know what I mean? So it's like little stuff like that,
Sure.
that you're like, oh, hey, you know, like I remember you from Cheers way back when, you know, just little things like that, you know.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, see, that's the answer I was expecting from the little I know of you now, because I can tell you're somebody who appreciates the ride and the experience, and that's what it is all about. Because for me, with those singing competitions, which, you know, I get it if you're a part of it, but as a viewer, obviously they're still super popular. I'm in the minority. But I was on the American Idol kick when it first started, and especially when the people at the beginning, you know, because it's kind of like a car crash. And then you get to those, and it was reminiscent of the Decline of Western Civilization Part 2. Those people who are like, I'm going to win. I'm going to make it. I'm convinced. And it's like those people, it's like, I think it's like I couldn't stand the delusion anymore. And so I guess got turned off to that. But yeah, there's obviously still amazing singers. And thankfully, singers like you bring rock and metal to those kind of shows. That's another reason why I was turned off. I'm like, how many times can I hear someone sing Aretha Franklin? Not as good as Aretha. Yeah, so
I think that's one of the tough parts, is the shows are very geared toward the pop music and not so much to rock. You can see by the song selections you get to pick and stuff, you know. But the thing is, the one thing I would say about The Voice is their vibe is all about making the artist shine, having you look good, appealing to America.
Good.
Whereas like American Idol, that one tends to be a little more, and I don't mean to slam them, but like there was a contestant on The Voice when I was there, and when I was talking to her, she was on American Idol like a couple years earlier or something, and like they separate. She was only 14 or 15 at the time, and they separated her from her family, shoved a camera in her face, and were like, "How do you feel now that you've failed and you didn't get on the show? You ruined your life," and all that. Like, they were trying to make her cry.
Oh my God!
By being really mean, and like, they don't do that crap on The Voice.
All right, all right. Well, I'm officially a Voice fan, so that's all I need to. Yeah, those kind of things turn me off. Especially, exactly. You see these little girls or boys that are so talented anyway, but they don't make it for whatever reason, and you crush their dreams. But yeah, so it's nice to hear your version of it, who had such a great experience. But I guess here's the natural segue of our conversation. With the songs that you had to choose from, were there any Guns N' Roses? Were you allowed to sing? Was there any Sweet Child of Mine? Are we ever going to hear that on The Voice?
Yeah, it's a temptation, but oddly enough, I'm very familiar with Axl and his voice, and believe it or not, I mean, and I don't know how much you know about singers, but singers have a pocket that they sing in that's kind of their natural pocket. And that has really nothing to do with whether you're good or bad. It's just where, because also when you're in hard rock and heavy metal, you have what's considered your chest voice and you have what's considered your head voice. And now on the voice, they seem to get confused. Like, to me, head voice is like a powerful high as opposed to the falsetto, where you talk like a girl, talk like a girl. That's falsetto, Whereas, that's head voice. It's a lot louder, you know what I mean? And so, but where your chest voice starts to break in your head voice, you have a certain break point, and that break point is different for different people. So I'm sorry for the long answer.
No, I love it. Please.
I don't have a great matchup with my voice and Axl Rose's. His like that Sweet Child of Mine is really taxing for me to sing, even though I can sing much higher than that and lower and all that. Just where his like money notes, if you will, are not in line with my money notes. So frankly, I mean, and I've felt that way ever since he came out. I remember when Guns N' Roses originally came out, it was like I don't know, it was weird. They just kind of wiped the market, because in one way they were kind of hair metal, but not really, because they had this kind of weird sleazy rock and roll thing going. And what was funny is grunge didn't wipe them away. They still had this appeal that was like, and I remember at the time that it was almost like the Beatles or something. It was like they had that kind of vibe. I mean, because I was in bands playing in nightclubs in Detroit at that same time, and the effect that they had was just stupefying, really. It was like, you just couldn't believe how much everyone was like, oh my God. And you can see it because Appetite sold 20-some million albums or whatever. And so, yeah, no, it would have been a smart choice to try it from a popularity standpoint, but I don't know if from a singing standpoint it would have been the best selection for me.
No, I appreciate it. I love that answer, because I'm not a singer. That's why I went into radio. I would love to be a rock star, but I have no talent. So I guess if you can break down, are you able to break down Axl's voice in a certain way? How does someone like him or any of these artists over time keep up your voice? Because it's not like, I'll use Van Halen as an example. I was very fortunate with thankfully when Van Halen reunited, to see Eddie and Dave, and I know Dave was never the greatest singer, and I love what he does, and people criticize him though. He's not Sammy Hagar. He never was. Yeah. Eddie was always Eddie. Like, the guitar doesn't age. The voice box, your voice does age. So, talk about some Axl, and I guess you, and how you take care of your voice as you age, and you have to adjust your pocket, so to speak.
Yeah. I think really there's kind of a couple things involved in that. One, it depends on what you do on album, because there are things you can do in the studio that you can't really do live so easily. And it has to do with, like, when you sing up in the higher ranges, and I'm talking up in the higher ranges, that you have to have like air to support it, but also, like, I'm not a trained singer, so I can't tell. I can do it, because I've trained myself, but I don't know how to teach people. But essentially, I don't know if this is technically what it is, but it's almost like you're pinching your chords, or and you can only keep them pinched so long in that high range before they start to get vocal fatigue, and you really distort it out and you sound horrible. So what you have to do is you need two things. You need one, to be able to come back down into lower ranges, do some singing there, or you need breath space. And so a lot of times when you're in the studio, like, I think a perfect example and I'm not picking on anybody, but Sebastian Bach, that guy's voice is stupefying on those albums. It's absolutely beautiful. His vibrato is incredible. But you listen to a song like I Remember You, and if you watch him live, and I went back, because that's one I thought about doing on The Voice, I went back and watched him all the way back in the 80s, and ever since they've been playing that song, when it gets to the I Remember You, he's always holding the microphone out to the crowd. And the reason is because in the studio, when you record that, you're going to record, remember yesterday, walking hand in hand, love letters in the sand. And then you stop singing, and then you come back on a separate track, and you go, I remember you. And so live, trying to put it all together, you don't have the breath space in there. You need to be able to sing it. So that's one issue. The other issue is, yes, there is aging and then how you've used it. So like, I haven't necessarily played tons and tons of shows, and even Axl, because they've had a long time where he hasn't had to play shows, so that's probably why his voice is still pretty strong at this point. Whereas if you look at somebody like, say, Jeff Tate, and I absolutely love Jeff Tate from Queensryche, he's probably he probably is my biggest influence, but even with him, you can see where what he put on album was so incredible that trying to sing that to this day is like, oh my God, like, you expect me to be able to pull that off live, especially now that he's 60, I think. So that's all part of it. So you have to take care. Now for me, I try to stay really fit and really healthy. I also, I tend to sing a little quieter live, just to try to maintain my voice. Cause with Riot, sometimes we're doing 2 hours and 2.5 hours. And a lot of that singing is really challenging. I'm not a druggie, I'm not a smoker, all that sort of stuff. So it's really a big ball of wax, what did you do on album and how tough was it, and then some people are just mysteries, like you look at somebody like Bryan Adams, dare I pick somebody from pop, but like to me, he sounds raspy. And when you see him singing, he's got these veins popping out of his neck. I sat at the front row at a concert with him just a few years ago. So my wife absolutely loves him, and I've always liked him too.
Yeah, Bryan.
So we were there at the front row in the acoustic one where it was just him and a piano, and he comes out and he's doing this, singing. And the funny thing is, I kept thinking his voice is going to be dead by the end of the show, and it's not. It just keeps going because that's what he sounds like. Same thing with somebody like Brian Johnson from AC/DC. I can't sound like that on my best day, but he does it all day long. So there's a lot of weird elements in it. So like, there's no one perfect rule, but as a singer, I can look and appreciate all those different things. That's for sure.
Right on. And I just want people to appreciate, because sometimes, I don't know, I get defensive of, these our rock star heroes that we all age. It happens, and it just sucks. Like, yeah, you put out this perfect thing on an album that made you who you are, but there needs to be some breathing room to understand, right? What happens when people get older and still appreciate it for what it is,
Yeah, you got to cut people some slack. I mean, the reality is, and it depends on what you're going for. Like, there are some music, well, it's not a big deal to sing it. It's going to be easy to sing that for the rest of your life. There are some songs, you look at stuff that Jeff Tate did on Operation Mindcrime and those earlier albums, and man, trying to produce that live is very, very difficult. There's a lot of bands like that. Heck, I just recently recorded a cover of Triumph, Fight the Good Fight. Oh my God, I can't believe Rick Emmett can play a guitar and sing that at the same time live. That song is really difficult to sing. Now, granted, I made it sound awesome, but that's because I sat in my studio and I recorded it over and over again until it sounded awesome.
Practice makes perfect. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Todd Michael Hall, this was really cool. Sonic Healing via Rat Pack Records. It comes out, May 7th, I believe?
Yes.
And, so if you want to go to ratpackrecords.com, or what's the best way to reach you on social media?
I have a webpage, toddmichaelhall.com, and that's pretty much what all my social media stuff is, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, that sort of thing. Just look for Todd Michael Hall and you'll probably find me.
Oh, cool. Well, this was a very educational and fun conversation, so I really appreciate your time, and I hope we get to do this again.
Oh, I appreciate it, and I'm sorry for my really long answers. I'm a long talker. So.
No, this was a session. As somebody who's not a musician, sometimes I feel really dumb talking about music. I'm just a fan. And yeah, I don't play guitar, so I don't try to pretend to talk tech. But with me, I've always been a lead singer as a fan, a lead singer guy. So when I hear, I get a chance to be educated about what goes on with the vocal cords and how to, and just and how some of the greats can do it. And sometimes it's just a mystery. It's just, I don't know. It adds to it all, and just my my mission to get people to relax and just enjoy the music. That's it.
There's definitely a lot to it, and that's one other last thing I didn't really mention is that being able to sing live in front of a loud band. There's, I've been doing it for a very long time, and there's a lot of seasoning and experience that goes into it, and a lot of times you project too loud when you're in front of a loud band because they're loud and your voice just goes. So like that's the other thing is learning how to sing live and not ruin your voice. It's a talent. It takes a lot of work,
Sure. Well, obviously your talent's gotten you this far. So best of luck with your first rock solo debut. Your resume is way too long to summarize. So until next time, Todd, thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you, Todd. And again, of course, thank you to Nancy Wilson, Icon. Two really fun conversations on this episode, I think. I think you do too. That's why you're hanging out on this Guns N' Roses themed bar mitzvah party of a broadcast, right? And don't forget the conversation continues always online on social media, facebook.com/the AFD show, on Twitter, on Instagram. You can always email me at the afdshow@gmail.com. And that's actually the best way, if you haven't heard yet, working on a book with Doug Goldstein. Doug Goldstein's story. And this is it's going to be different than I think other authors in other books, because I'm really going to bring you along with the process. So I'll before this episode wraps up, I'll mention this. It's daunting. I'm honored and privileged with the opportunity to do this. I know I can. It's very it's like, wow, it just doesn't seem real, yet. And it's not going to seem real until, pages are put together in print. And that's just kind of who I am. But I always need that kind of little kick in the butt to be like, you're doing a good job. Like, it doesn't have to be real yet. Just have the confidence. So it comes from odd places sometimes. So Doug he sent me a text yesterday, and he's like, a few years ago, I was going to work on this book with a journalist from Rolling Stone, Italy, I believe. So, a journalist that works from Rolling Stone, Italy. And he's like, he has some notes, and he sent it to me, and he's happy that we're working on it now, and you can feel free to use whatever. And I'm thinking, I'm going to look at this thing, and I'm going to realize how far behind I am, and maybe I'm not doing it right or whatever. I look at it right, and it's nicely structured, kind of just like a very long outline, brackets of what chapters can be, and maybe like a summary or synopsis of what that chapter is going to be about. We are so far ahead of that. We are so far ahead of that. So we have a bunch of recorded hours down that I'm transcribing, and of course I'm just thinking about what the layout is going to be, how to do it, how to tell Doug's story. And you're going to be along for that ride because, again, send an email if there's a story that you want Doug to tell. Now, there are the obvious ones, of course, but if there is a specific one and you want to, you could possibly be a part of the book, and maybe that's like an idea we didn't think of. You will get credit in the book. We will say question submitted by, John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. Now that song's stuck in your head, sorry. And then same thing goes for photos. If a lot of photos out there that are not online, because those are the days of, not social media during the Use Your Illusion days. So if you have any photos that maybe Doug is in or very special concerts you would like to share and be in the book and, of course, be credited, again, send me an email, please, at theafdshow@gmail.com. As far as what is to come on Appetite for Distortion, well, I did announce this online, so if you do, again, follow online, you would know already that the next episode is going to be Drew McIntyre from the WWE. Former WWE champion, maybe WWE champion again soon. I am blown away. One of those opportunities I get to have because of my job. I'm going to be on the phone with him for 2 hours. My interview is not going to be 10 minutes, just like this one. But it's one of those where I'm running his radio tour to promote his new book, his autobiography, and I get my 10 minutes. And I found out that he listens to Guns N' Roses, or at least he did before his WrestleMania match with Brock Lesnar. I know there's a crossover with GNR and wrestling, so hopefully these names mean something to you. But it means something to me, and it's going to open up hopefully more and more doors to more and more cool people. I mean, Nancy Wilson is amazing. Obviously, talking to musicians like Todd Michael Hall, amazing, but it's the I don't want to call them randos or randoms because Drew McIntyre is famous, in that world. But just to hear somebody else that you would not expect talk about Guns N' Roses, that is so much fun to do. So stick around. Get Hall of Famers, we got wrestlers, all of this on Appetite for Distortion. And it all, of course, centers around the nucleus that is Guns N' fucking Roses. So that does it for this episode. When will you see, the next episode? When are you going to hear it? Well, the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy. You'll see it, I don't know, as soon as the word.
Thanks to the lame-ass security, I'm going home.